Hello and welcome. Today I will be showcasing a rendition of St. Michael's Basilica from Altenstadt, Germany. St. Michael's Basilica is a church built in 1180, with its design belonging to the Romanesque style. Right now, I will be showcasing a video of me playing on my survival world whilst I talk about the history and development of Romanesque architecture. What is the Romanesque style? Romanesque style can be attributed to the constructions that include high and thick walls, small windows, and semicircular arches. Much of the style on the outside remained flat and bland in contrast to the later style of Gothic constructions, which were often a feast on the eyes visually. Symmetry was also an important piece of Romanesque style, as it had often been whilst the Romans and Greeks were still kicking. Groin vaults and barrel arches were also a common feature of Romanesque buildings, along with minimally protruding buttresses. Frequently, constructions were made with a rubble stone build, which is unlike the commonly perceived ashlar dressed stone masonry, that being the sort of style of having stone bricks, as you can see in this Minecraft clip, across the walls. After the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE, much of Europe was left in the constant state of flux between continual war and brief peace. This state was also apparent before the collapse, with the inclusion of barbarian invasions and raids across the lands. All of this instability contributed to one major decline: Roman and subsequently Western European prosperity. A decline in prosperity tends towards a concurrent decrease in the ability of a culture to build works of wonder, due to a reduced ability to acquire the resources for said constructions. It is no wonder that after the fall, much of the original works of the Romans went into disrepair, with such innovations as aqueducts and hypocausts and the Roman baths largely disappearing from European memory. The end of the classical period, such was the Roman dominance, began the so-called Dark Ages, where the original innovations and technology of the Romans faded from neglect. In time, a brief revival of Roman styles began, and although not living fully to the glory of the previous period, did further itself into modern memory, where it is remembered today as the Romanesque style. This revival was fronted by two dynasties, the Carolingian dynasty and the Ottonian dynasty. The style largely began due to the ability of craftsmen and funders to play around with new ideas and resources due to the relative stability being formed as a result of Charlemagne's hegemony over Western Europe. Charlemagne's empire of the Franks began taking large swaths of territory with the aid of a powerful military and feudal system, the likely first of its kind, and then that would allow the development of craftsmen and other artisans to develop the style. Europe at this time, including the papacy, was consumed by the idea of a resurgent Roman Empire, of course forgetting the obvious fact that the Byzantine Empire, often also called the Roman Empire, existed in the East. Charlemagne's empire, though, attempted to emulate this idea of a resurgent Roman Empire through stylizations of Roman constructions, and additionally the crowning of himself as the new title, quote-unquote, of the Holy Roman Empire in 800 CE. However, through Charlemagne's emulation of the Roman style, though Charlemagne's emulation of the Roman style can be labeled as the first entrance of the political world into Romanesque style, the movement first began with the Catholic Church and its monastic orders. The monastic orders wished to emulate the Roman style as well. However, in contrast to Charlemagne, the monastic orders contributed more to the style's adoption across a broader area that would include more than just Francia and its subject territories. This was due to the vast networks of holy men communicating ideas across the monastic order. Churches, abbeys, cathedrals, and many more important religious sites during this period were constructed in this style thanks to the aid of the monastic orders spreading Romanesque ideas across Europe. This final push forward in Romanesque adoption was in its adoption in Germany under Otto I. Otto I, like Charlemagne before him, desired to reform the Roman Empire. Unfortunately for him, the previous HRE under Charlemagne and his successors had collapsed nearly a century before due to dynastic infighting. Fortunately for him, however, he had both the power and political might to crown himself as the Holy Roman Emperor with the proper permission from the Pope. This time, this Holy Roman Empire was centered in Germany, not France. Once again, Otto, like Charlemagne before him, wished to emulate the styles of the Romans. After the inclusion of the political realm, the Romanesque style spread from more than simply the construction of religious buildings and the construction of castles to the building of administrative buildings and also towns. The adoption of Romanesque stylizations onto military fortifications was more than just aesthetic choice. The imposing high and thick walls, aided by powerful associations with Roman dominance, created a sense of fear in any potentially unruly subjects or foreign rivals. Often, the same was for the religious adoption, with a more spiritual purpose in mind. Religious adoption of the Romanesque style contributed to symbolism, such as the floor plans being constructed in the shape of a crucifix, also often called cruciform planning, with high towers and walls serving to create a sense of awe in God, in the viewer. This would also be common in such styles as the Baroque style during the post-Renaissance period. The final chapter of Romanesque styles began with the Crusades. The Crusades in the 1090s and subsequent invasions brought with them the styles of the Byzantines, whose territory the Crusaders had passed through. These stylizations furthered congruence with the original Roman styles, as the Byzantines had practically been a time capsule of the Roman Empire. However, merely copying style becomes quite boring, and as such, the growth of the Gothic movement in the 12th century eventually phased the old style out of mind. Well, now on to the second part of the video. This is my rendition of St. Michael's Basilica, that is built in Altenstadt, Germany. It is a part of the Romanesque style, and you can see some of its key features, such as high and thick walls. There are also small windows, like these here, and there are also, inside, semicircular arches. There aren't very many on the outside, maybe pieces like right here, but it's a lot more prominent in the construction of the inside. Much of the style, a lot of the outside would be plain and boring. Now, I added some of my own pieces, like these bits of depth with the cobblestone walls, in order to create some, depth into the building, in order to make it look far less ugly than the just straight taking it from pictures. Because the original rendition of this, when I built this, was awfully ugly. Until I added some of these bits and pieces of, I suppose, furniture to the construction. Now let's head inside. Now on the inside you can see what I was talking about. Here we have barrel arches. Now barrel arches are basically internal structures that are arched and in a pattern akin to what you would see around the rings of a barrel. Let's show what I mean. See the rings of the barrel? The two black iron rings? Well, they're called barrel arches because they look much like that, at least in their pattern. Now, continuing on, you can obviously see the distinct lack of ashlar dressed stone masonry as mentioned earlier. We see these stone constructions that are just a bunch of stones, specifically in this case sandstone, just cobbled together instead of being cut precisely into rectangular cubic patterns. Now, well, that's quite a bit about it. There's another thing that I should mention. Let's head back outside again. What did I call it? Cruciform style? You can see quite clearly here. This looks very inappropriate, but, you can see the obvious influence of the cruciform sort of cross construction. Oh, God. I apologize, but I'm sure somebody out there is laughing as they watch this video. Probably caught it on before, oh my God. Probably caught on far earlier than I did, but, well, that's how you go with life and humor. Anyways, I should probably have started putting more than just the pulpit in the building. We probably should have the pews constructed as well, but I was too lazy and also forgot because I was listening to Susie Sue and the Banshees because they're fucking awesome. Don't criticize me.